This episode of Going Forward is brought to you by Optmyzr, an award-winning PPC management tool used by advertisers worldwide. Save time and boost the performance of your PPC campaigns on Facebook, Amazon, and Google or Microsoft. Get a 14-day free trial at optmyzr.com/go/VIP.
Welcome to Going Forward, where inspiring conversations with leaders and entrepreneurs shape tomorrow. Dive into the depths of their journeys, the hurdles they've overcome, and the insights they bring to the future. Let's get moving right here, right now on Going Forward.
I'm fanning out, right? I'm fanning out. I've got Mr. Chris Ronzio, CEO and founder of Trainual on the line today. Chris, what is going on, man? How you doing?
What's happening, Eric? I'm fanning. I'm so excited. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Man, full disclosure, Chris and I bumped into one another at a conference in Austin. And I said to Chris, I was like, man, I think we did the Trainual thing, and I don't know. And man, you walked right from behind the booth and you're like, when did you do it? It's like, dude, we did some updates and everything else. And I was like, oh, okay. Every time I came back and I would come down, I was like, he wasn't kidding. And I think I came up to you and I was like, hey, we're doing it. We are doing it. And I think that's right then and there. We were like, all right, I'm signing on with Trainual. And we're going to talk about Trainual, and we're going to talk about you, Mr. Chris Ronzio, and actually what brought everything to be. But, for those folks exactly who don't know who you are and what Trainual is, please help them understand.
No, I love that you jumped back in and that you took the plunge, and I'm so excited to talk about it today. It's like, do you remember when Burger King released their new fries? Do you remember that? It was like, we've got
Yeah.
new fries, and everybody's like, oh, if you haven't tried Burger King's fries, you got to go back and try them. That's how
Right.
I feel about Trainual. It's like, if you haven't tried it lately, you haven't tried it,
Yeah.
because we put so much into the platform, and it's been around for a little while. So let me share the quick story. So going back, I started my first company when I was a teenager. I was 14. It was a video production company. We did youth sporting events. It started in Massachusetts, where I grew up. It's
Hmm.
quickly spread around New England, up and down the East Coast. As I went through high school, went through college, we were spread across the West Coast. And by the time I finished school, I had 3 offices. We were doing events in all 50 states. And the biggest thing in that business was process. It was, how do we
Wow.
consistently do what we do in any venue, any sporting event in the country, so that when people show up, they get the same experience. They see the same brand, they purchase their videos in the same way. Everything was process. And
Hmm.
so I had checklists and standard operating procedures and dialed in processes for how we did everything, how we trained our camera operators, our production managers, our editors, every person in the company. And when I sold that business, I realized that that was a pretty unique skill set. A lot of
Right.
people don't invest in operations. And so friends of mine started saying, hey, can you help me with my operations? Can you help make my business turnkey, dial in my processes, my responsibilities? And so I started doing that little by little until I realized every company needs this package, this playbook of who
Hmm.
they are and how they operate. And that's what led to Trainual. So late 2014, early 2015, built this little prototype software for my consulting clients, and that
Wow.
today has spread around the world. So it's been a cool journey.
I've heard you refer to Trainual as a playbook for businesses,
Yeah.
and I like to think, when, us founders, we want to run our companies like a sports team. And if you are, regardless of what sport you're in, you always have to have a playbook, right?
Yeah.
So, referring to that sports book, referring to sports and kind of thinking of Trainual too, now I can see exactly why you say it is the business playbook. So has there ever been a time where someone has said to you, like, I don't want to be processed to death,
Yeah,
but
of course. I mean, as founders, we don't want process, right? We don't want to be told what to do. When you
Mhm,
start your business, there is no process. Everything is an experiment. You're figuring it out at the beginning, right?
mhm,
But same with a team. On a team that just starts from scratch, no one has plays yet. You got to figure out what each person's specialty is. And then you develop the plays that put your team in the best position to win. And
mhm,
as you develop those plays, then you start to run the plays. Later in the season, you see teams running more plays because the team has gotten gelled together and they understand how to work with each other. And so it's the same with a business. At the beginning of your business, you shouldn't have a playbook because no one knows how to
hmm,
run this business the right way. You have to figure it out. You have to experiment. You have to figure out how I do things that make customers happy, that make me the most profit. But as owners or as entrepreneurs, or even as the first employees in a business, when you start doing things repeatably over and over and over again, and you realize, okay, I've done this 10 times the same exact way. Well,
Hmm.
now you're just repeating the job. Now you're just showing up and doing the work. And if you
Mm.
want to scale the business, you need to plug someone else in to do that job so that you can go figure out the next job. And documentation, creating the playbook is the way to scale. It's like putting down the cement when you're building each level of your foundation. You need to put down new people that can do these things in the business. And that's what requires process. That's what requires a playbook. And so for us entrepreneurs, we're always creating the next process. We're not adhering to the process, we're creating the process. But for our teams, if they want to do things consistently, they need process, they need the
Hmm.
play, and that's the value it serves.
One thing you talked about entrepreneurs, we don't always adhere to the process, and I think you're right. And there's going to be some entrepreneurs who may dial into the beginning of this, and they're going to wonder, like, what can this do for my business? Can this help me with sales? Can this help me with more revenue? And in turn, I believe having a better process can. You know.
Yeah. What it helps is it helps you clone yourself. If you've ever thought, I wish I had more of me, or like your
Mm,
best employee, you're like, why don't I have more of that person? Well, cloning yourself might not be possible, but if you can clone someone's role in the business, if you can clone the results that they have, the impact that they make in the business, you might have a salesperson that can bring in a couple $100,000 in sales in a year. Well, why wouldn't you have five of those people?
mm,
If the difference between having one and having five is the instructions to turn four more people into the first person, like that's what you're missing. And it's the
yeah.
same for any position in a company. And so what does this do for people? Well, first, it frees up your time so that you can focus on other things in the business. And next, it replicates your success, your sales. So I think back to my video company. When I was on camera, I would spend 8 hours on the camera at a sporting venue, and then I'd go home and I'd spend the next few days editing the production,
Right.
and then I would spend the next few days after that, replicating all the DVDs and shipping them out and, being the fulfillment manager, and then I'd spend the next few days after that,
Wow.
in, like, customer service land and, like, emailing people that they're tracking information and whatever, and then I'd spend the next few weeks after that in the sales mode trying to get my next job,
Yeah.
you know? And you can't scale a business that way. You're
Mm,
basically patching together a job for yourself if you're switching from one position to the next in the business. And so what documentation does is it says, "Hey, here's the way to do those 5 jobs. I need 4 other people to help me do the jobs all in the same day or all in the same week so
mhm.
that I can get specialized and focus on the thing I do best." And as my video business grew, I went from being on camera to having 25 people on camera on the same day at 5 different venues around the country in 5 different states. And you can't do all of that yourself, but if you can package up how you want it done and teach other people to do it, that's how you scale your time.
Now, you hit on a couple great things right there. You were talking about the other people and going to the 25. Now, I always think about Bill Belichick when I think about process. And it was almost like, during the era when him and Tom Brady had their run, it was like he could put anyone on that team and win a Super Bowl. He brought in Randy Moss, he brought in all these different people, these different positions, and it was almost like he had the process and he had the playbook. And every player almost said, they have a process in New England to be able to win. And it was like he had this method, right? But then when Tom Brady left, everything kind of went down. They're one of the worst teams, worst records in the NFL now. So, what do you say to those CEOs and those founders that say, "Well, I just need better players, not better processes," right?
Hmm. I think it's both. Before I get into answering your question directly, though, can I tell you a side story?
Yeah, please.
So when I was in college, I there was this career fair, job fair thing going on, and I was running my video company at the time, and so I wasn't interested in getting a job. But one of the booths, as I'm walking around the hallway, is the New England Patriots, and so of course I stop at the booth, and I'm like, "Well, I got to know
Yeah.
what are you hiring for? What are the positions?" And they said, "Well, we're looking for quality control interns. And I said, well, what does that mean? And they said,
Mm.
well, we need people that are kind of like secret shopping fans to come through and critique what we do at the stadium. And I was like, sign me up. I want to do that. And so I'm standing there filling out the list. I get a phone call from one of their people. I did a quick phone interview and they hired me as a quality control intern. So again, it's kind of just like for fun while I'm in college.
Wow.
But for a season, I went to every game and I would show up hours before the game and they'd have me measure the amount of time it took to get from the highway to the parking lot. Did the parking attendants send me in the right direction? And then I would get into the stadium. They would give me a few $100s in cash with instructions like go buy a t-shirt at the store, go buy a hot dog at the stand and rate how hot was the hot dog, 1 to 5.
Wow.
And did the security guy know where the nearest ATM was? And so they
Mm.
had process, quality, everything dialed in as a team. And you could see it as an attendee, you could see it as an employee in the building, not even to mention the players and the coaches and how they ran the organization. So to get back to your bigger question, I
Man.
think it's important to have the structure and the process and the roles of which roles people are fitting into to do the job well. Everyone needs to know their role. And so when they could bring in someone like a Randy Moss and say,
Mhm.
we just need you to run down the field and catch incredible passes. Like he had a very narrow role and he fit into the structure of their offense. And whereas when you lose a superstar like Hall of Famer like Tom Brady at the
Mhm.
quarterback
Mhm.
position, it's hard to just plug in a superstar back in that same role. So it does take both. It takes incredible performers. You need the talent in your business, but
Mhm.
you also need the structure, the process for that talent. And so you've seen a lot of teams over the years that have incredible talent, right? Like, if I'm a basketball guy, for me, what comes
Same.
to mind is like, the big three in Brooklyn, when Kyrie and Durant and
Oh,
and James Harden are all there, they just couldn't make it work, right? You got
right,
tons
right.
of talent, but you didn't have the structure. You didn't have the roles and the team to be able to pull that together. You need both things in a business for it to be successful. Talent plus process.
That's true. I mean, imagine if the Chicago Bulls back in the day, taking it back to basketball, had had all 5 Michael Jordans. They wouldn't be exactly where they are now. And I doubt if they would win if they had all 5 Michael Jordans,
Yeah, I don't
you
know.
know?
That's like I can't even imagine 5 Michael Jordan sounds incredible. But no, you're right. They'd probably all be in jail because they gambled each other to death or something, right?
Well, see, the New England Patriots story, I had no idea that you had a relationship with them, and I just brought the whole Bill Belichick thing up because I knew they had process, you know?
Yeah.
There was a quote that you had. You said, "Building a business is not just about the product, it's about the people and process behind it." Go into that for me, Chris.
Yes, it's funny. I was actually listening to the Elon Musk audiobook this past weekend. I don't know if you've heard it, the
No, I
newer
haven't.
one.
I haven't.
He said something very similar and I don't remember where you're getting that quote from when I said it, but I believe it. And so I'm just going to use this story. So Elon was talking about the product, of the Tesla when they were first starting the manufacturing. They had
Mhm.
designed this beautiful product, but he spent more time on the manufacturing floor than he did with the designers. And his reasoning for that was that the product isn't what makes the company successful. It's the process of efficiently manufacturing the product,
Mm,
efficiently delivering the product to the customers. I do think it's both. I think in order to have a product that people love, it's got to be, designed well. It's got to be a great idea.
right.
But there's a lot of great products and a lot of great businesses that just don't make it.
That's
A lot
true.
of small businesses don't make it.
It's
Too
true.
many, like
Yeah.
95%, right? And they can be incredible. They can be artisans. They can be extremely effective at what they do, and they just can never grow past being that technician, being that artisan, being that person that does something really well. So to build a business, you need to put people and process around your product.
Mhm.
Your product will never scale, never become something that everyone in the world knows if you don't have people and process that help replicate that initial person.
Mhm.
And that's what the playbook, this concept of a playbook does. It's not limited just to the step-by-step sequence of how I do something, your standard operating procedures. It's also your culture and your values,
Wow.
the way that you interact with customers, because your brand is every bit as responsible for your success as the sequence that you do something is, your process, right? And so all of that is encompassed in your playbook. It's how do you replicate the success you're having on a small scale on a big scale, and that's people and process.
So you mentioned having your culture and also your values. Are those things that should be documented as well, even though
100%.
they're not a process? They're not like this is how we do. This is one task that we do, and we do it this way. So I mean, how do you document your culture and your values? How do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah, 100%. So I call the business playbook, my book, the business playbook. You can find it on Amazon or anywhere else. Breaks it down into 4 different areas. And so
Hmm.
your company's playbook consists of, number one, your profile, the
Okay.
profile of your business. What that means is it's largely your culture, your brand, your stories. It's like if your company had a dating profile, what would it look like? You know, it's like, who are you and what are you all about?
Right.
And so for a business, that is your mission, your vision, your values, what makes you different from other companies.
Hmm.
It's your founding story, like why you even got into this company, the
Hmm.
key milestones that you've hit along the way that people should know about your business. It's the customer that you serve, your ideal customer. It's the market that you're in, it's the competitors that you have. All of those things, those like business plan sort of things that you might pitch an investor to, is
Yeah.
the same kind of stuff that you want to introduce every single new hire to in your business. That's your profile. And so your culture piece fits into that bucket. Documenting your culture is, I think, the most crucial thing you can do up front,
Mm.
because in the absence of any process documentation, your culture, your values, your why are we doing this, will directionally help people make the right decisions. You know, if they understand the customer they're trying to serve, the product that they're offering, the way that we interact with each other and the behaviors that tie us together,
Hmm.
that checks a lot of boxes for how we're supposed
Yeah.
to operate around here, right?
Yeah.
And so culture is the first piece to document. So that's all part of your profile. I'll hit on the other 3 quickly because you didn't ask about them, but we can get deep if you
Yeah.
want.
No, I want to know them. Give it to me.
Yeah. So the second one is people,
Mhm,
because when you join a business, the people make your business a lot different from even a company across the street in the same industry. And
mhm,
so people is roles and responsibilities. It's everybody's bios, their background, their personal history. It's their contact information. It's anything you would need to know about your coworkers. That's your
mhm.
people. Third is your policies. So policies are how we
Okay.
choose to run our businesses, the decisions we make. You know, do we work remotely? Do we work in an office? What time do we work? How often do we pay people? What are the perks and benefits here? All of those are policy decisions that you make. And then finally, process. And the reason process is last is because you'll spend forever changing your processes. You'll always have a new best practice, a new way to do things. But those first 3 are kind of the foundation to your business. And so I
Mhm.
always recommend people document your profile, your people, your policies, and then constantly be iterating on your processes.
Can you have too many processes and too many policies, Chris?
Yes, yes to both. So I'll start with policy. You don't wanna be slapping policies on everything, just for the heck of it, because
Mhm.
that causes a lot of bureaucracy and red tape in the business.
Mm.
Policy can slow you down, and you don't want too much of it. You want enough of it to give people the answers to questions they would need to know. So
Right.
I'll give you an example here. Really early on in Trainual, like I'm talking first 3 or 4 people, we
Mhm.
had someone come in for a few days and for a customer support role, and I just knew 3 days in that they were not a fit. They they uh,
Wow.
they didn't fit the culture, they didn't fit the behaviors, and I hadn't figured out why. I
Mm.
hadn't documented it, I hadn't written it down, hadn't figured out why. And when I let them go, I I felt bad about it. I felt like I didn't set this person up for success because I didn't do the pre-work, the homework to outline what success in the company looks like. And that's a, it can be policy oriented, it can be profile or culture oriented, but you want to do that pre-work to understand who is going to be successful here and what do I expect of them. Is it okay to show up wearing wearing shorts and flip-flops, or we like a
Hmm.
suit kind of environment? That's
Right.
a policy decision. Is it okay to work at 2 in the morning if I'm getting my work done? Or do I need to be on during business hours to answer customer emails? What is the policy expectation here? These are things that you can answer in advance. Now, on the flip side, if you're creating policies, like because you had one infraction of like one crazy person, like
Right.
don't park your car in the bushes, because one person accidentally did that. Now you're just creating a bunch of noise for all the other people, and you
Oh,
don't
good
want to do that.
point.
Yeah,
Good
so
point.
don't create too much policy, and then similarly, don't create too much process. Sometimes people go about documenting process and they think, let me get so detail oriented, so granular. I want 100% of everything in my business written down. No, you,
I've done it.
yeah,
This guy did
no,
it.
no, because what happens is then stuff starts to change, and keeping it updated is a full-time job.
Yeah.
So the stuff you want documented is the 50 to 80% of things in your business that are done consistently, that aren't changing. And when you've got the consistent things in the business documented, you're way ahead of most people. The rest is innovation, experimentation, subtle differences that don't make a big difference to the business.
Mhm.
You want to document and have process for the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Chris, with all these things, like you said, you don't want to make it a full-time job to keep up with it. Well, who's responsible for making sure that you have the right policies and the right processes? Who's responsible for that? Is it an HR person? Is it the entire team? Who's responsible for that?
So policy is, some of it's going to be, legally required. And so you may have some policies that, just based on the jurisdictions you do business in, the states you have people living in, some things are required. And so
Right.
definitely work with your HR, your legal teams, make sure that you've got the legal stuff in there. The
Right.
rest of the policy kind of things are like, do I wear pants or not when I'm on the Zoom at home? Like, what do we expect of people? And that's usually like the leadership's team's
Right.
decision. So that's for policy. For process, every process in a business, every area in a business should have someone that owns it. And so in a software like ours, you
Mm,
distinguish, you decide who owns this process. That's the person that's responsible for keeping it updated, for making sure it's done correctly, for making sure that all the people beneath them have been trained on it. So divide and conquer with process.
man, that's interesting, Chris. You brought up a lot of things, and earlier you talked about being able to scale your business with processes, and I don't think it's really attractive. Let's just say if someone's looking in on your business, the one thing they want to know is, is this thing going to be hard to run? When they walk in and they look in the door, and couldn't that, not having your processes documented or having these things in place, couldn't that prevent someone from going forward with buying your business?
Oh, 1,000%.
Mm.
So we actually do a lot of work with the International Business Brokers Association and the Certified Exit Planning Associations, and the groups that are focused on people selling their business.
Mhm.
And what we hear time and time again is that a company that has documented process, a company that feels turnkey to operate, first of all, it sells way more quickly.
Mm.
Far more of those deals cross the finish line and don't fall apart in due diligence. And
Wow.
then they have more success during that period of continuity to the new buyer. Because in the same way that, selling your laptop with the original packaging sells more on eBay, like, people
Mhm.
want the instructions and whatever
Yeah.
included, when you
Right.
buy a business, you want to feel like, okay, I got the whole thing. I've got I there's no surprises here. It's funny with Trainual, we raised investor money along the way as well. When we were looking for investors, or courting investors, we trained them with Trainual. I assigned them material inside Trainual to learn all about us as a business. And
Wow.
investors would tell me, like, I've never had a company just teach me all of that asynchronously. I know more about Trainual than any other business that we're looking at right now.
Wow.
It creates so much confidence with a buyer, whether it's an investor buying part of the business or someone buying the whole business. So absolutely helps you sell your business.
I think I'm gonna dub you the professor of process after today. How
I
about
like
that,
it.
man? All right,
I'll
we're gonna
take it.
take a break and we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk a little more about how organizations can scale with better processes. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, so we'll be right back after this break.
Hold tight, listeners. We're taking a brief pause. Going forward, we'll be back shortly with more insightful conversations.
Hello?
Whoa, dude. You gotta pass some things off.
Thank you.
This is how you do it.
If you don't have Montel Jordan, you need Trainual. Build your playbook, train your team, scale your business. With Trainual. Get started free at trainual.com.
How you do it.
Man, look at that. You even got Mr. Montel Jordan in there who just celebrated a birthday this past week or so, man. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool, man. That's pretty cool.
I was
Um,
just gonna say that his birthday was Sunday, I think.
Yeah. So one of the things in there, you actually offered, like a free trial of Trainual right there in that ad. But I think before the call you were talking, you said you had something special for the Going Forward Nation today.
Yes. So for the whole Going Forward Nation, if you want to try Trainual, if you want to kick the tires, sign up for our free trial, go to our
Mhm.
website and then enter the coupon code Going Forward 20, all caps Going Forward 20. You'll get 20% off your first year. So hundreds of dollars in savings to set you up big for process next year.
So I think now is probably the best time for people to really take a look at themselves internally. I'm going to tell you something, Chris. I should have sent this to you over right before we got on, but we actually shut down a few days after I met you, and we worked on guess what? Processes.
Okay.
No
Nice.
kidding. We booked a condo on the Isle of Palms, here in the Charleston area, which is a beach oasis, and we did nothing except worked on processes. No kidding.
I love it.
And I'm gonna tell you, Chris had no idea I was gonna say this today, and there was, I believe we were some of those businesses that we did great work, but man, I really figured out how unorganized we were when I started to take a look back and say, why is turnover so high?
Hmm.
Right? Why is turnover so high? Or why were some people unhappy? Why were some people unhappy? And it was because I think, as CEOs, we think everyone should think like us. And why don't these people, when they come in, have the same expectation and the same work ethic that I do? They should figure it out. But we made it tough for them. And there was a study that I saw, and it said that if people have a great onboarding within their first 100 days, that they actually turn out to be longer term team members and they're happier team members.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the experience of joining a business has got to be one of the most jarring experiences we face as adults. For
Oh,
people that get a job and you get thrown into a new reality with a new set of people with new responsibilities, you're not sure how you're going to be measured in terms of success. You don't
mhm.
know all the information and what's been decided or not decided over the years. You have no historical context for the business. You're trying to figure out your footing on, are there internal politics that I need to navigate? You want to make sure that you're successful in doing the job that they hired you to do. It's
Mhm.
it's such a jarring, difficult time for a new
Yeah.
person joining a business. And so if you can have a really welcoming experience where people are happy you're there, they're excited you're there, they're
Mhm.
praising you for some early wins,
Mhm.
and they're excited for how you're going to develop versus an experience where people largely ignore you, where you don't feel like you belong, where you don't feel like you're doing a good job, where you're not exactly sure what's expected of you. Like those are two dramatically different experiences,
Yeah.
and I think people joining businesses today can be at the polar opposite ends of that spectrum. And so what we're trying to do with our software is to make that experience more predictable. You want the same experience when someone joins your business. And so if you mention turnover, why have some people stayed and some people haven't stayed? Well, you
Hmm.
do a little digging and you take a look at what was the experience or the qualifications or the source of the person for the ones that had the longest tenure.
Yeah.
And when you do that digging, you start to compare some common denominators. And maybe you say, oh, all of the people that really stuck had been referred by a friend, another friend. Well, what did they get from that reference? Well, maybe
Hmm.
they got more of an inside scoop on what to expect about the business. And so maybe
Wow.
for people coming in cold, we need to do a better job educating them during the application process to make sure that it's a good fit culturally up front. You uncover these like little nuggets based on
Wow.
the variables between people, because what you're trying to do is create this best practice, the best path of success,
Hmm.
whether it's for an employee, for a customer of yours. It's all about best practices and documenting those.
Right before the break, I want to come back to that, but right before the break, we were talking about, your businesses are a little more attractive when people can kind of see like it's turnkey, using the
Yeah.
word that you said as well. I mean, do you find it also where once CEOs or founders get these processes and policies in place, they could really step back a little bit
Oh yeah.
and they're not so involved, and it's almost like they duplicated themselves, you know? Do you see that
Completely.
happening a lot?
Completely. I mean, I can share from my experience. When I had my video company, I again, I used to travel and go to every event. And I remember when I moved to Arizona, which was about 14, 15 years ago, we had 5 events going on the same day. And it
Mhm.
was it was a weekday, and I went for a walk on the golf course with my wife, and I remember us just talking about like, wow, there's 5 events in 5 different states happening right now.
Wow.
I'm not at any of them. It feels so good. And when you fast forward through, my own history, I think about, like, I had 2 kids. We've taken months off at a time where in the summer when the kids are off, we go and spend time somewhere else in the world, and I know that the business still works. Earlier this year, I went to Antarctica for 3 weeks, and the
Wow.
company came back, and the company still works, because when you've got great people and they know what they're responsible for, then as the owner, you get to put yourself in a different headspace where
Mhm.
I'm not constantly on vacation. I work really hard, but I'm working on the next big things. Like, how are we going to find a new big channel for the
Yeah.
business that drives millions of dollars in sales? Or how are we going to bring on a new investor? Or how are we going to strategically change where the product is going? Or what's a company we're going to acquire? I wouldn't have the space to work on those problems if I hadn't been able to package up, how we operate in day to
Mhm.
day. And that's what business owners have to get beyond, is the daily operations, the weekly operations of the business. Because when you trust your daily operations, it gives you that full day to maybe be at a conference, right? When you trust your weekly operations, it gives you a week to maybe go leave and do strategic planning. If
Yeah.
you trusted your monthly operations, maybe that gives you enough time to, go to a different country and set up a new office there. Like, as you unlock these different levels of operational stability, it gives you the extra time and mental bandwidth to focus on the bigger opportunities.
I want to stay on that word operational stability because you know how many people are running 7, 8, 9-figure companies and they can't take a break, like just what you were talking about, Chris? I mean, that's insane to
Yeah,
me.
totally. It's horrible. When you've got a 7, 8, 9-figure company, you can afford a lot of roles, unless you're just bleeding money
Mhm.
and you're struggling to stay alive. At that size business, you've developed a product market fit, some kind of popular product or service. You've got
Yeah.
a stable business. If it's not operationally stable enough for the leaders to be able to unplug a little, you've built a crappy business.
Mm.
Like cut it back down and try again, like get rid of some of your worst, least profitable customers. Stop selling so many SKUs. There's so many things you do. Like make a smaller, easier to maintain business and build it back
Yeah.
better. It's not all about just driving your top line revenue. You want to build a successful company, and successful companies have space for the owners, the leaders to think.
I think there was a few years ago where the word hustle was just like the word that every founder, CEO wanted to use, and now it's like, I don't want to be a hustler. I want to be a CEO. And it's like it's like now it's like if you have something like Trainual in your business, it helps you to become not just the CEO, but a better CEO. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
man.
absolutely. It's hustle, I think, can be I don't think hustle is a bad thing. I think, if you're eager, you're anxious, you're rearing to go, like that's a good thing. That you're enthusiastic, that you act on ideas, like all of those pieces of hustle I like. But
Yeah.
when hustle means doing a bunch of tiny tasks that don't move the needle just to feel busy,
Mm,
that's not good.
wow.
When your time needs to be spent on big problems. And so, something that anybody on this call could do is just write down all of your activities that you're doing today or this week. Look at your calendar and put dollar signs next to things. Is it a $1 sign activity? Is it a $2 sign activity? Is it a $4 sign activity? And the more $4 sign activities you're doing, the more impact you're potentially making for the business. Whereas
Wow.
if you're doing all of this, kind of low hanging fruit stuff, you need to offload that. You've got to delegate it, find someone else to do it, because businesses don't grow if they're capped by their highest value people doing their lowest value tasks.
Wow. Say it one more time.
Businesses don't grow if they're capped with their highest value people doing their lowest value tasks.
Wow, that is so strong. So from the people standpoint, because we talked about the people and we talked about process, how do and we talked about it from a CEO standpoint, how do the people look at something like Trainual? Like, let's just say your group, I mean, they've grown up with it, they're used to it.
Yeah.
But how do people do they like it or do they say like, oh man, everything's documented? I mean, from a people point of view, tell me what you've the feedback you've gotten.
Yeah. So, I mean, the easiest answer is people say like, "Oh, I just ask Trainual." Like if you've got a question, just ask Trainual. It's
Right.
probably in there. And you can literally just type a question into the software, and if you have access to the data, it'll just give you an answer. It's like Google Home or Alexa or
Wow.
something like that. And so when your people can see Trainual as it's not training that's being jammed down their throat like the old school, DMV training about you getting your license or whatever. It's like this is useful stuff for how to do my job better. And if I have
Mhm.
a question about how we do this or who do I go to for what responsibility, I can ask this software and it tells me that helps me operate better. And same for your new people when they're getting started. If you're giving them this consistent experience and they're watching videos about the company and they're seeing you and your face telling them a story about your mission and your vision, that's valuable for them. It helps create a connection between the person and the leaders or the business. It helps them get to know their coworkers. And so it's all around a
Man.
positive thing. Information that's available to you is a very positive thing.
How's Trainual kind of shaped your look at entrepreneurship?
Well, for me, Trainual is a little bit more about making a worldwide impact to entrepreneurship because I've always been an entrepreneur. I was like the 4-year-old that was washing cars so I could afford Ninja Turtle action figures. Like I've always been an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
and for me, it was at the beginning, it was about service. I was washing cars, I was doing landscaping, I was shooting videos for people into high
Yeah.
school. And then something changed and I learned how to use operations to scale the business. And I had my success with my company. Then I started my consulting business, which was to teach that methodology to other people, but also being paid for service. And this
Mm,
whole chapter with Trainual is how do I empower businesses around the world to do this themselves, that they don't need necessarily a consultant or something to do it, and they don't need to be an expert, but they have this software tool that supercharges their business. Right now, you could ask any company listening to this, the whole audience, do you think it would be valuable for your business to have all of the knowledge, all of the history, all of the process, all the best
wow.
practices in your company in one place? Do you think that'd be valuable? I bet everyone says yes, that'd be valuable. Now you ask them all, do you want to go do that today or tomorrow? And it's like, I don't know. I got other things to do. I've got a meeting. And so what we're trying to do with Trainual is make it just sort of passively in the background, collect all of the information about your business from all of your people, from all those
Mhm.
different process owners, because no one disagrees that it's important and it's valuable. It just needs to be easier. That's what we're working on.
Man, we're going to take one final break, and I want to come back and talk about the different kinds of businesses or even education that could be using Trainual. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be right
Hold
back.
tight, listeners. We're taking a brief pause. Going forward, we'll be back shortly with more insightful conversations.
Hey, it's Eric here from VIP Marketing, and I want to ask you, digital marketers, something. Are you frustrated with your current PPC marketing campaigns? Well, I want to tell you about a tool that we use here at our agency. It's called Optmyzr. You have the ability to get your reports up to date and make sure that you get alerts on them. You can even work into workflows as well. So if you're frustrated with your campaigns right now in the reporting systems that you use, I want to give you a 14-day free trial of Optmyzr. Go to optmyzr.com/go/VIP. Now, Chris, we talked a lot about businesses using Trainual, but it's bigger than just one business. Tell me the different types of businesses that you've seen use Trainual, or can you use Trainual in education?
Yeah, yeah. So we've got this chart, this pie chart that I've used with investors that show the industries that use Trainual, and it's just like 1,000 little slices in a big circle, because there's so many companies that just need operations
Wow.
process. It's really industry agnostic, but the commonality, I would say, is that they're businesses that employ people for some kind of service. So it could be a B2B service, like we've got a
Hmm.
ton of agencies, law firms, accounting firms, investment VC firms, or it could be like home services. We've got a ton of landscaping and roofing and cleaning and those kind of businesses. Medical and dental is a big vertical, nonprofits, and then education that you mentioned. And so in education, these are people businesses. You've
Yeah.
got a lot of times districts with a lot of different schools, and they
Oh,
want those schools to operate in the same kind of way. They've got policies or philosophies that span across the schools. And then within a school, you have your whole faculty, and you've got, again, methodologies, how you work with the children, how you build your curriculums, how you do interactions with
wow.
parents, how you send. All of these are processes, right? And so education is absolutely a vertical for us around the world, but really it's not constrained to just a business. It's any organization, any group that needs to get common information across. We've got, for instance, this past weekend, I was doing a half Ironman race, and
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
yeah, and
Congrats,
and
man.
our thank you. So Ironman uses Trainual across all of North America to train the volunteers at the races.
Wow.
So tens of thousands of volunteers that are, handing out bananas and putting on Band-Aids and giving, like, they need to know where to go and what to do and how to do it. And so anything that involves organizing people, you could use a system like ours.
So what about those companies? Like, because a lot of them don't know how to set things up. If you give them the tool, like me years ago, I had the tool, I didn't know how to use it. Do you guys help with any kind of implementation? With those businesses or businesses that employ people? Do you help with that?
Yeah, yeah. So we have so a couple different things there. First of all, we've got an army of a few hundred third-party consultants that are
Mhm.
certified in Trainual. And so if you're
Mm.
looking for someone that can come into your business, help you do all the work, map your processes, that knows our software inside and out, just trainual.com/consultants. So that's a
Wow.
great resource for people. When you sign up for our product, you get about 6 weeks of implementation support from our in-house team, just helping, put any existing materials, documents you have into the product, train you, make sure that you understand, that your team understands how to use it. And so that's a service that we offer. And then again, we have, over 100 employees that are just focused on training and shooting videos and doing webinars and answering support tickets. Like, we want people to be successful. So when you need that operations help, just head over to our website. We've got templates, live chat, anything to help you with your business
Wow.
operations.
You definitely do a lot of videos, and I think earlier we showed the video with Montel Jordan. I've seen Damon John, all these, very popular celebrities. And someone like Damon John, he doesn't speak about anything unless he really believes it, man. So that's really cool, man, Chris.
Yeah.
You work on vision a lot for Trainual. So what's on the horizon? I mean, what's the next thing that you're focusing on for Trainual?
So what I keep saying recently is I want Trainual to be like your smartest, longest tenured employee, you know?
Wow.
And so when you think about your business, if I ask you who your smartest, longest tenured employee is, the one that knows everything about the business that you could go to for anything, you know who that person is in your head. And especially with, the how quickly AI is moving and how easy it is to collect and parse through information now, we have the opportunity for Trainual to be that sidekick to your business, where
Wow.
all of the information, all of the context, all the history, all the expectations for people to be successful lives in Trainual. And that helps both the owner, the managers, the leaders, and every person in the business. So that's what we're trying to build.
Chris, I'm gonna make sure that we actually put, that offer out there inside of our show notes, man. But you've been an incredible guest, and I'm so impressed with the company. And I'm gonna tell you, I wish that we had done it earlier. No kidding. And going forward, Nation, Chris didn't ask me to say that. He didn't pay me to say that at all. I'm just telling you that it has made a difference in our company. We have 15 team members, Chris, and there's some companies out there that are much larger than us. And I think any size company can use Trainual, but it has done a lot for us. It's moved the needle for us a ton. And I'm sure it can do a lot for a lot of those other businesses out there, man. So, but that question, I mean, do you have some large businesses that use Trainual? Some
Yeah.
people, yeah, is that for me? Can I use it?
Yeah, of course. It just matters on who you're trying to train and what your goals are. So just talk to our team. But we have people with thousands of employees using Trainual.
Man. All right, you guys heard it here first. This is my friend Mr. Chris Ronzio from Trainual, CEO and founder of Trainual, an amazing company. When you guys have an opportunity, go to trainual.com. And he also put his money where his mouth is. And he told you he's going to give you a free trial. And he gave you a special offer to the Going Forward Nation to give you guys not 10, but 20% off. I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, that's somebody who stands behind their product. If you feel this podcast has been amazing to you, I want you to make sure that you share it out to other business owners out there. Chris, you're an amazing guest. Make sure you hold the line for me, my man. Take care, everybody. Going Forward Nation.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate our podcast and share it with a friend. Every share, every comment, every rating propels us forward. For more content, insights, and updates, visit ericelliott.com. Remember, your journey, your story is what keeps us going forward. Until next time.
I want to thank you all for giving us your most valuable asset, your time. And also a huge thank you to our sponsors over at Optmyzr. For all of you who are running PPC campaigns and you want to see how to do it better and get better results and actually boost the performance of your campaigns and save time, get a free trial at optmyzr.com/go/VIP.